from the Deep South, or the Southwest, or the Mid-Atlantic, or New England. We think differently here within the Midwest. Michigan is going to think a little different than Iowa, right? So there's those paradigms that we all come to it with. The second one is the political divide, all right? And that's a little bit about this, Iraq and Libya thing. You're an R, I'm a D, we're going to beat each other's brains in. Why? Because the letter's behind our name. It doesn't matter, you now hold the position that I held 10 years ago on a particular issue. We're just going to go at each other. There's a little bit of that, but quite honestly, it gets portrayed as far more than what it really is, because the third one, the philosophical divide, is really what I think is driving so much of that. And it gets sort of played off as political rancor, but it's a philosophical divide that is involving the proper role and scope of government and what people believe, is quantitative easing the proper thing to do, which is where the Treasury is buying back our own debt. All right, that's going to be coming up at the end of the month, and there's debate about whether to stimulate or attempt to stimulate the economy. The federal government should continue to do that. There's TARP funding, you name it. I mean, all of those programs are part of that philosophical divide. The fourth one is a generational divide. And we see it within my caucus. There's 87 of us freshman Republicans. There's 9 freshman Democrats. I've talked to a number of them as well. They see it, but it's a little more pronounced than ours just because of the numbers. And we've been told by our own leadership, sometimes it's in between the lines, it's kind of like, okay guys, we're going to let you take a few tough votes. We're going to send you home. We're going to let you sit through a couple of town hall meetings where you're going to get beat up. You're going to come back, and then we'll teach you how DC really works. All right. We'll show you, what you got to do. And there's a number of us, and this is a relatively conservative, pretty solidly Republican district. There are guys who I'm in this class with who are holding seats that the Republicans haven't held since the 1880s. Yes, I said 1880s, all right? And these guys are taking some very difficult votes, and they're going back to their district, and they're saying, I'm okay. I'm okay with having to go back and explain. Now, you got to cut through the rhetoric and the TV commercials of, grandma getting shoved over the cliff, right? And some of those things. But these guys are coming back and saying guys universally, it's men and women, that are saying, I got sent there to make some very difficult decisions. I'm okay with doing that. I want to do it. And when Tim Geithner said to us, as he did the other day on Thursday, is he said, you guys could politically handle the heat for the types of cuts that you need to make. All right? There's a number of us that are saying, try us. Try us. All right? I mean, and I know you might not like that, but here's why. Because what we are doing in the setup for this is the philosophical difference. And real quickly, what the president said, and then what Geithner reinforced on Thursday, is he believes that he has ventured dramatically out on the limb. He's proposing, in their description, $4 trillion in cuts over the next 12 years. All right? Now, I was a social science major, not a hard science major, but do the math on that. It's less than $400 billion a year. Now, we're overspending this year $1.5 trillion. So 150 billions, right? So we're going to cut 300 of that. That still leaves us with 1.2. But of that $4 trillion, it's actually $2 trillion in cuts, $1 trillion in tax increases, and $1 trillion in interest savings. Okay? So we're actually talking more about $180 billion a year in actual cuts. And the president believes that is as far as you can absolutely go. My concern is not then so much on what that is, but the impact for us when we're talking about the debt. I mean, we're sitting at zero basically for our interest rates. It's virtually zero. They're going to go up. We know that they're going to go up. We're continuing to add billions of dollars into this fund that we're going to have to pay out. Right now, the fifth largest expenditure is interest on the debt. There's projections that that will soon pass defense spending. That as we're having to deal with that, we're sitting at $14 trillion in debt. And some of you may have seen, I was on the House floor, and I got a little more passionate than I typically am. One of the reasons was I was down there listening to some of my colleagues, and I got frustrated. I got very frustrated. And I used on the House floor the example that I talked about. I just was talking with a high school kid today about this. You know, you're in high school and you're going to get a summer job. You're going to make $220 a week, but you're going to spend $370 a week. Now, I was at school a couple of weeks ago where I got a lot of students. His hand shot up and mouth engaged, right? He goes, well, that's dumb. And I said, well, okay, but in all fairness, are there times that maybe you need to go in debt? You're going to buy a car so you can get to a job. Are you buying a piece of equipment? Are you saving up for college? You're doing some of these things. So there may be a reason, but not picking on mom here, but if your mom and dad are anything like my mom and dad, mom charged me interest when I had to borrow something. But there's times that I think those were good life lessons. Thanks, Mom. Didn't always appreciate it at the time, but thank you. But can you do that all summer? And the answer is no, you can't. And so our problem is we add 10 zeros behind that. And that's what we're doing this year. We're taking in $2.2 trillion in revenue. And that's taxes, that's leases, that's everything else. All right? But we are spending $3.7 trillion. And that's not a one-time deal. It's not a one-time deal. It's happened under both administrations. I'm not going to speed up. I'm on my own pace. We're going to get to your question. We have been doing this under both administrations. It has taken a dramatic leap in the last couple of years because of the philosophy of trying to save those jobs, and whether it's the auto industry or TARP or whatever else.
And recession is a big part of that. You can't just rely on that base.
Oh, absolutely. No. If we had everybody back to work here in Michigan, back when I was serving in the state legislature, we would have solved a huge number of our fiscal problems. However, the state of Michigan, we still continue to spend more money. Budgets themselves have continued to go up. It's not like we've held flat and revenues went down. Revenues have gone down and our spending has gone up. That has exacerbated the problem. And so as we're marching forward on this, at what point do we address those issues? And there's short-term things, medium-term things, and long-term things. The long-term things are Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid. We just have to be honest. Now, for anybody who's 55 in here, the much-aligned Paul Ryan plan does nothing to you, and it will not change. All right. Now, the president's argument when we were in this meeting, because that got brought up, and he acknowledged that, but he said Medicaid. Here's the problem with Medicaid. If we're going to block grant Medicaid to states, if we're just going to hand over the money to the states and say, okay, guys, you figure out how you can most efficiently and effectively deal with this. The president's position is, well, what's going to happen at the state level is eventually they are going to have to start making cuts to children and to seniors, and therefore it's fair game for us to go after you if you're going to block grant Medicaid. Now, I've asked our side to do some research because Senator at the time, State Senator Barack Obama, I'm just curious if he signed on to any bills, or any resolutions, or any letters that requested a waiver for the state of Illinois from the federal government when it came to Medicaid. Because I know I did, and I know that the Speaker of the House, Andy Dillon, Democrat, did, and I know that Jennifer Granholm did, and I know that a whole bunch of other people did. So I'm just betting there's maybe a paper trail about that one where he would acknowledge that the states are looking for flexibility. The other thing is Social Security. I'm 42. The Social Security Administration has now admitted that, for me, conveniently, right about the time, 25 years from now, 24 years, they dropped it a year, 24 years from now, Social Security will no longer be paying out 100% of what I paid in. It'll be 78%. All right? That's problematic to me because it starts, I'm at 42. What's happening to these kids that are 22, or my kids that are 12, and those kids that are 2? What happened? We're seeing their life expectancy go up dramatically.